Mwinyi for?
Tanzanians can remember the late Ali Hassan Mwinyi was passed today in 3 or 4 areas. First is a father of the current or incumbent president of Zanzibar and chairperson of the revolutionary government of Zanzibar. This shows that as a father, he tried to do his best to equip or to train or to make sure that his child becomes the way he wants to be. So it's a lesson for our parents, it's a lesson for us that this is the way we are supposed to take care of our children. So it's a tragedy, it's really shocking to lose such a person in this moment, because the country is heading into elections, the 2024 elections and the general elections. So the wisdom of his kindness, his humbleness was really needed by not only his son, is the current president of Zanzibar, but also Tanzanians. In the second aspect, we can look at him as the president of the United Republic of Tanzania. He took the government in the period where there were changes in the international system. There was a fall of the USSR back in 1980s to 1991, where there's some drift in the USSR. So there were major changes in the international system. The globalization and its forces were coming out. And it was the time that he took the government into his hands. So these changes in the international system also impacted the way governments were supposed to be run, because we were confined in the centralized economic system, and we were pushed to go into free trade and all those stuff. So you could see his wisdom, his strength in terms of managing the country. It was a very tough period. As I was listening to Judge Warioba some days, he was saying the same thing, that he took the country during the period that was very tough. So it shows how strong was he in terms of managing the affairs of the state. If you can remember, as you can remember well, that was the time when the Bretton Woods institutions, the IMF and the World Bank, started to outline the commandments, the way they want the countries to be run, more particularly coming out from the Abeg report of 1981. So we had issues like trade liberalization, issues like transparency, rule of law, multi-party democracy, so many commandments, so many elements that the countries were supposed to follow. As chairperson of the party in his time, he could say that I cannot take this into at this moment, but because of his kindness, the way he was looking at the country, the way he wanted the country to achieve progress, he thought it was the right time for him to accept the conditionalities that were laid forth by the Bretton Woods. So we started with trade liberalization. So he was famously known as the Ruksa because of that trade liberalization. So we started to witness investors coming in, private sector participating in the economy, in investment in several areas, not only in the economy, but also in social issues, welfare, like construction of schools and the hospitals. So the private sector started to go hand in hand with the government in terms of facilitating availability of services such as school, education, and healthy. So we can refer to him as a transformer, or someone who has brought changes in the country, because we started with Mwalimu Nyerere, Julius Kambarage Nyerere, back in the days where we had centralized economy. And in his time, the country was opening up. So to me, he engineered the changes that we are witnessing now. For example, we can also speak of the Vision 2025 that we is now about to wind up 2025, but it started in his period. It came out of the structural adjustment programs that were given out, were laid forth by the IMF and the World Bank. So as a country started to examine itself, started to see where it can accommodate the adjustments and make sure that they cannot affect the affairs of the country. So there is where we started to have Vision 2025. It started in his period, although it emerged in 2000. But at the beginning, the inception of the idea was started during his period. So to me, he was an engineer. He was an engineer, or engineered the opening up style of running a country. But also accepting multi-party democracy was another thing that can distinguish him from other leaders, because, as I said, he was a chairperson of the party, and they have that power. He could say, if you remember, in 1965, before 1965, we had a multi-party system, but in the strifes that occurred in Zanzibar in 1965, we ceased to have multi-party system, and we opted to have a mono-party system. So accepting a multi-party system is something which shows that he was strong enough to accommodate the tides of leading or taking charge of the government. So we have so many things to talk about him, as I said, as a father of the head of the state, but also as
Abbas, I'm sorry to cut you short. I know you have a lot to say and we have a lot to ask. But you talked about Ali Hassan Mwinyi taking the country when the world order was actually moving a bit fast. What do you think this signifies about his leadership ability?
I was going there. You know, that shows how strong he was. There were confrontations between the West and the East. And it was a period where, you know, you could not say I'm supporting this side or this side, but he took the country and accommodated all the parties. You know, friendship continued as it was during Mwalimu Nyerere's era. So it shows he was a visionary leader. He was very strong. He was tough in terms of managing the drifts of international system. But also he was, as I'm going there, he was a believer. He was standing on his beliefs that I want to go there. I want to take this country to this position. If you can remember, in one aspect, there were some challenges in Zanzibar in 1984, and he went there. He was selected, or he was appointed to take charge of Zanzibar for that interim period, and he came back to take control of, leadership of the Union government of the United Republic of Tanzania. So you can see. He was very flexible. He was very flexible depending on the situation. Whatever the situation came, he was confronting that kind of situation. So to me, I take him as a legacy of boldness, a very strong leader, and very wise and humble. But also he was a believer in terms of faith. You know, in one of his speeches, he was saying that he was saying, you know, I have few days to stay in this world, and I don't want to leave something bad behind.
So, what do you think other present leaders can learn from him?
You have cut me short, but yes, in terms of present leaders, can learn. First is accountability. Accountability. If you remember, in 1970s, there were some challenges in the jail in Tabora. There were people were flogged. The prisoners were flogged in the jail, and some of them died. The Minister for Home Affairs decided to resign from his position. That shows accountability. He was living, that's why I was saying he was living in his words, that you should be accountable if something happens in your office, and you are responsible for that. So the current leaders have to take that example, has to live in that example, because this is also part of good governance. Because when you're speaking of good governance, it has a number of elements, like some are saying 17 or so, but let's just take the three: transparency, accountability, and rule of law. So to him, he was very transparent. If you want to know how transparent he was, just read his book. He spoke of his life very openly, but also in terms of accountability. As I said, he was very accountable. So to me, I think leaders have to, the current leaders have to learn from this one, but also being patriot. It is something that we can learn from him. Being a patriot is something which is most of the leaders now have the challenge. If you remember, in some few or 3 years ago, the fifth president of the United Republic of Tanzania is late Dr. John Pombe Joseph Magufuli, gave him a house at Msasani. So you can imagine a president, who was in office for 10 years, was not having such a house. But current leaders, most of them, we normally hear, we watch on social medias. A leader has been appointed into a certain position for a year, has built a very big house, has bought a very beautiful car. So it's something that current leaders have to learn from him, that they should be patriot, they should be accountable on running or on what they are responsible in taking their responsibilities.
So, from your own point of view, what role do you think he played to bring balance to Tanzanian politics?
First, by accepting multi-party democracy is played a role of creating balance, but also allowing the multi-party system. I mean, by allowing multi-party system, he allowed freedom of expression. Now we see demonstrations. So the elements of democracy were accommodated during his period, and they started to emerge during that time. So it is something that we have to we also are learning from. So to me, that is in terms of democracy, is something that it portrays the big picture of how he was, we can learn from his legacy.
Thank you so much, Abbas Mwalim. We're all saddened by the news. May his soul rest in eternal peace. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Dr. Abiy Ahmed, has arrived in the country for a 3-day state visit and was received by the Minister of Foreign Affairs and East Africa Cooperation, January Makamba. Speaking to TBC News at Julius Nyerere International Airport in Dar es Salaam, Makamba highlights key areas of energy, peace and security, agriculture, livestock and trade to be the sectors to largely benefit by forging further ties between the two countries.
Kwa nafahamu Ethiopia ni nchi kubwa katika ukanda wetu, ina mambo mengi ambayo tunashahabiana.
Ethiopia is one of the Africa's economic powerhouses. So first is to deepen ties between the two countries. But also we will strengthen ties on the area of energy. As you understand, we are about to finalize the Mwalimu Nyerere hydropower project, and Ethiopia is embarking on similar projects. So we can maximize on exchange of expertise. But also these two nations are members of the East Africa Power Pool. So there will be power interconnectivity between the two countries. Secondly, Ethiopia has the highest number of cattle in Africa, and Tanzania is the third. So there is a great platform of cooperation as well in this area. On the other hand, Ethiopia is active in agricultural production, especially coffee and tea. So we expect to form ties in exploring markets for our agricultural products as well.
Furthermore, Makamba insists the visit will also explore best ways to curb the human trafficking business, leading to many Ethiopians intercepted in Tanzania while illegally on the way to other countries.
Mara nyingi hapa tumeona raia wa Ethiopia
We also do experience the problems of illegal immigrants from Ethiopia who are mostly intercepted here on their way to other countries. So this signifies how big the human trafficking issue is. So we will forge further cooperation to curb the problem.
Makamba urges the business communities in Tanzania to capitalize on the Ethiopian market, and the visit will open new doors for investment in both nations. The 13th World Trade Organization Ministerial Conference, which is being held in Abu Dhabi, United Arab Emirates, has entered its last scheduled day today, with major disagreements being witnessed amongst the member countries. The disagreements, especially between developed countries and less developed countries, emerge from issues related to fishery subsidies, agriculture, e-commerce, among others. And here, the ambassador of Tanzania to Switzerland, Abdallah Posi, elaborates further on the state of disagreements between the two sides.
There could appear to be some areas where there could be some agreements, although both sides, if I may call it that way, between developed and developing countries are still unhappy, especially in major contentious issues like subsidies in fishery, public stockhold, of course, of food and agricultural products, or e-commerce, etc. And actual e-commerce, especially matters related to the extension of moratorium of electronic transactions. So we are still discussing, and we are waiting to see the proposed draft text of the expected resolution. But in most important areas, there is still a big difference of opinion.
On the other hand, the Principal Secretary, Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry of Kenya, Alfred Kombudo, furthermore clarifies on the disagreements on the specific issue of fishery subsidies.
Kenya's view is that for developing countries and all other countries, the exclusive economic zones of these countries should be protected from vessels that are straying into these areas. And Kenya's further view is that developing countries are also not contributing too much to this overfishing. And therefore, some policy space should be granted to developing countries to continue developing their capacities for fisheries exploitation, but in a way that remains sustainable. So we are looking for a two-pronged solution. One is for countries that already have overcapacity, for them to commit to sustainable measures and reduce eventually their exploitation of these resources.
Development stakeholders urge the government to further improve the reliability of power services, transportation infrastructure, and produce competitive human market in the market in order to accelerate sustainable economic development, especially at this time of economic uncertainty. They made the call in the city of Dar es Salaam during a high-level strategic dialogue, bringing together government and development stakeholders, focusing on accelerating resilience and inclusive development in times of uncertainty. Rema Sebabili has more.
It's a high-level dialogue that involves government officials and development stakeholders and focuses on how to accelerate resilience and inclusive development. Expressing the opinion, the development stakeholder says reliability of power services will provide assurance to investors and reduce production costs, while the improvement of transportation infrastructure will stimulate business competition and employment for young people.
Our headline message today as development partners is that aid in and of itself is not at this juncture the focus of what we most need to talk about. This is not us saying aid cannot or will not continue to be useful and play a part. Rather, our point is that no amount of aid or official development assistance will deliver the development results Tanzania wants from now to 2050 if the aid we provide is not accompanied by a marked shift in Tanzania's standing as a place for doing business and as a destination for foreign direct investment.
Many other challenges that needs to be collectively resolved to be able to improve the business environment, to reduce the production costs, so that the Tanzanian economy can grow faster, can be more competitive, can be more inclusive, so that people can be part of the development growth process, to create more jobs through the private sector investment, which requires more investment in infrastructure to close the gap, to improve predictability of policies, and to make the operational efficiency much better for the attracting more investment, both domestically but also foreign direct investment.
On the other hand, the Minister of Finance, Dr. Mwigulu Nchemba, said that the economic situation in the country has improved despite the country went through economic turmoil, promising that the government will continue to improve the important economic sectors in Vision 2050 for inclusive economic activities.
The main focus includes, but not limited to, human capital investment, infrastructure, development promotion, economic diversification, strengthening provision of social services, good governance, gender empowerment, and environmental sustainability. Through implementing these strategies, together with fostering partnership with private sector, civil societies, and development partners, Tanzania can make significant progress toward achieving sustainable and inclusive growth.
Government in Zanzibar, we have registered investment projects at the range of 320 with a proposed capital of United States dollars $5.4 billion. Now this investment is projected to create over 20,000 jobs in Zanzibar.
Among the topics presented in the dialogue are fostering inclusive growth, delivering economic growth for all, with a focus on priority issues that need to be addressed. Reporting from Dar es Salaam, Rema Sebabili, TBC News.
That marks the end of the news bulletin for tonight. On behalf of the whole team, I am Kanki Mwaigomole. Good night.
TBC1, ukweli na uhakika.
Kunywa maji safi ya uvuguvugu na salama kwa kiasi kinachostahili kiafya kunaweza kuboresha maisha yako na kukufanya ujihisi mwenye afya na furaha zaidi. Kunywa maji ya uvuguvugu kuna faida nyingi, ikiwemo husaidia mmeng'enyo wa chakula, ni dawa ya maumivu ya kichwa, huboresha afya ya ngozi, vile huboresha hali ya viungo na misuli, huondoa uchovu mwilini, hupunguza uwezekano wa kupata baadhi ya magonjwa. Maji ya uvuguvugu yanaweza kukusaidia kupunguza uzito, lakini pia maji ni kiburudisho.
Unaangalia TBC1, ukweli na uhakika.
Watanzania wamekuwa wakiishi kwa amani na utulivu tangu walipoung'oa utawala wa Kiingereza nchini Tanganyika mwaka 1961 na kuutokomeza usultani huko visiwani Unguja na Pemba mwaka 1964. Lakini hali hii ya utulivu na amani ilivurugika visiwani Unguja na Pemba mwaka 1984 kutokana na kuchafuka kwa hali ya hewa kisiasa. Chama cha Mapinduzi